domestic consensus. And North Koreans strongly believe that South Korea is a weak institute or weak entity because there's so much discrepancy, so much trouble, so much findings among Southerners. So, making a consensus among us in South is very important things. He emphasized, he doesn't describe how to do it, but that may be open to everybody to discuss how we're going to do it as intellectual groups or policymakers or ordinary citizens. This is really, we have to think about this moment at a time. Our next presenter is Professor Choi. As I told you, is a new guy in Korean society, studied in America many years, and he suddenly appeared 혜성과 같이, so like a young stars. He teaches Yonsei University now. Dr. Choi, please.
Thank you, Chairman. As introduced, I try not to be a North Korean specialist, and I am not a North Korean specialist. I study and I teach international relations theory at Yonsei University. And when I was asked to present at this session, my first reaction was, sorry, I don't want to do this. But, they basically demand that there need to be a sort of younger voice. But, I don't know what that means. Basically, throughout the paper, obviously my paper was not included in the program. I don't know the reason why not, but anyway. What I wanted to do is I will deductively sort of lay out things that we should do and we should not do. And basically, I like to lay out grand strategy or general ideas about nuclear weapons and succession politics and the future of North Korea, which I think is everything about, the world. I'd like to ask this. Basically, many people ask, what we should do in times of crisis. But we need to reframe the question here because we seem to know many facts, but we don't know the details. So then we should, basically deductively lay out a logic. We know that North Korea is going through economic hardship. We also know that, since, I guess, their missile rocket testing and nuclear tests, their international status is really deteriorating, and they're sort of maximizing their isolation. And also, we know that we thought that Kim Jong-il's health was worsening, and also there is a looming large uncertainty in succession politics and strengthening power of military politics. This is sort of the general facts that we know. So with that, what kind of question can we ask in order to resolve the North Korean problem? I think there are 4 big ifs. The first one is, if North Korea, as many seem to argue and agree, is trying to secure its domestic power base so that Kim's succession to his son is smooth and peaceful. And the second, if North Korea is trying to strike a better deal with the U.S. by going over the limit. The third, if North Korea is willing to bear any international pressure despite its harsh economic conditions. And the fourth and the last, if North Korea is showing the darn serious resolve to become a nuclear status, then what leverage do we have vis-a-vis this head-aching country that has been lingering for the last 20 years? Remind you that, that this nuclear ordeal started in, approximately around, early 90s, and it is 2009. So essentially, I grew up with nuclear crisis. The training that I got, which was international relations theory, essentially literature presents several policy options, regardless of their feasibilities when we think about Northeast Asian security. The first one is this: wage a war, invade it, which is a very short-term, although it's a very painful, maybe inconceivable, but there's a layout on the menu. Let's invade this. Well, second option is to punish the region by, surgically striking the sites of the problem, so-called nuclear site. And third is sanction it, sort of impose economic sanction. The first three are essentially coercive strategy. And the last one is obviously, I like to echo the constructive engagement. I guess I like to argue by going over the feasibility of each strategy, and then I basically argue that the idea of coercion would be dangerously naive and practically infeasible and politically dangerous. The first one option is obviously full-scale war, and we had that. We had this in terms of Iraqi experience. Obviously, this waging a full-scale war and winning it, and I'm sure that we will win against North Korea, would bring the complete end to the lingering security problems that North Korea has generated to the world, and we will achieve unification. However, the cost associated with such war is large, including an unimaginable number of civilians, and also economic destruction. And the long-term benefits of waging a full-blown war and winning it will offset such costs. It will bring the Korean unification and may make the peninsula a zone of democracy and capitalism, and obviously nuclear-free. However, this option is strategically unrealistic and morally, I emphasize, morally sinful, therefore inconceivable. It's unrealistic because, as we all know, Seoul is like 40 miles south of the DMZ, and many people will die, and the U.S. DOD and the South Korean government essentially assess that we will have around minimum 5 million casualties, including many foreigners. And also, it is and also many hardliner seem to sort of trust and sort of argue the U.S. enforcement. But as Dr. Choi Gang essentially argued, the U.S. cannot initiate such full-scale war because it is essentially thinly stretched at this juncture. It has a lot of problem in Middle East, so that this option is essentially out. Inconceivable, therefore does not deserve a single moment for consideration. And also, surgical military strike, it was essentially thought out during the 1994 crisis, and we all know that. What it does is it essentially surgically take out military and nuclear sites in sites that we know. However, destroying these facilities is one thing, but denuclearizing North Korea is another. In other words, the surgical strike will not achieve our final mission, because even if we do that, we still come up with many problems. For example, even if the U.S. successfully strike these sites, what about the nuclear sites unknown to us? What about the nuclear fallouts? What about the plutonium and highly enriched uranium that they hide? What about the nuclear devices that North Korea has already? And also, this option will only mean the end of the current turmoil and signal the beginning of the mid to full-scale conflicts on the peninsula. Therefore, I think that surgical strikes against North Korea will be unrealistic, dangerously naive, and productive at least. And the third course of option is essentially the economic sanction that we do right now. And but think about the policy design itself. The purpose of the economic sanction is to influence North Korea's behavior by inflicting pains. But where does pain go to? We have to think about it. The logic behind the policy is to strangle North Korea's economy, to weaken domestic political legitimacy of the regime, and to eventually force North Korea to concede to the U.S. and the world. This is a punitive action by the sanctioners with conviction that economic leverage will work. But essentially, as we all know, North Korea does not do much of trading with the United States and Japan. So obviously, this is they don't have much of economic leverage. And secondly, South Korea used to have a higher economic leverage on North Korea. However, as we all know, that economic leverage is decreasing. And even if our government sort of shuts down Kaesong Industrial Complex and shuts down everything, it will only aggravate the situations. Perhaps China is the only one that might have economic leverage over North Korea. However, I think that however angry China is, however pissed off China is, however betrayed China is, China has intrinsically two problems, even if it decides to do so. It is unlikely that China would stick to economic sanction at full scale until the North Korea concedes to the U.S. and South Korea, which would be quite long enough to cause regional economic problems in Manchuria. And also, at the end of the day, China wants stability around its border. So any policies that push North Korea to the limit, which will aggravate the situation and destabilize North Korea, that will, at the end of the day, sort of destabilize the region. So, logically speaking, it will be very difficult to respect